Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Annie, and if you're new here, thank you so much for stopping by. If you're returning to my channel, thank you so much for the continued support. In this video, we're going to be talking about my top 5 favorite books of all time, along with some honorable mentions that just barely don't make the cut in terms of my all-time favorite books. But I wanted to do this because I think books say so much about who you are as a reader, especially the books that you would consider your all-time favorites. So I think in the beginning of this channel, I would love to talk about my all-time favorite books so you can have some context into what I like to read, what matters to me as a reader, and what I think I'll probably read similar books as this channel progresses. So yeah, I just want to get right into it. We're going to start with my honorable mentions here in a second. Okay, so I have 3 honorable mentions for you. The first one I have is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This is a memoir about her experience going through grief after her mom passes away from cancer. It also includes some of the lead up into her mom passing away, and it is very deeply emotional, and she has an especially complex relationship with her mom throughout the book and theoretically throughout her life. So the book really goes into that, and it goes into how grief interacts with complex relationships. I love this book because, one, I listened to the audiobook, and I'm a big fan of Japanese Breakfast, which she's the lead singer of, but she does the audiobook, and you can tell how much this book was emotional for her to write and bring back all those emotions and feelings from writing it. So I really liked it. I think if you are interested in nonfiction and memoirs, this is definitely worth checking out. And you'll see that I have another memoir that is about grief in my actual top 5. So, but we'll get to it. The next top 5 favorite book honorable mention I have is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. I'm actually a huge Grady Hendrix fan. I really enjoy the corny horror of his books, and I also think this is like the most beautiful, fun cover. It really screams like 80s, 90s. It's meant to look like a VHS tape, and I really love that. What I like about this book is it tells the story between 4 friends, but primarily 2 best friends who are going through high school and just going through young adult life, and one of their friends seemingly gets possessed by a demon, and they have to basically overcome that together. She starts acting strange and different and weird, and her friend basically decides to help her. And I think that this book really shows the testament to female friendship, but it also just feels like such a book from the past and feels like dripping in nostalgia and really delves into a perfect setting. So I really love this book, and I think if you love like corny Halloween stories and aren't so much of like a horror story person, this is basically the best author for you in terms of getting that like camp horror vibe. The final book I have for my honorable mentions is Funny Story by Emily Henry. Now, listen, I know this just came out, and I think it might be a bold thing to say that this is one of my favorite books ever, but I love this book. It tells the story of the 2 main characters who have just both undergone very traumatic breakups and them having to live together and of course eventually falling in love. But the reason that I love this book is because I think Emily Henry writes really strong settings, and I think in this book it's especially prevalent as she really contemplates whether she wants to live in this small Michigan town. But as a Midwesterner, I think that this is a love letter to Michigan, a love letter to Midwestern summers. It really reminds me of so many moments of my childhood, and it really just makes me want to go swim and go on to the beach and go on a boat, and it just made me have such wonderful feelings while reading it, and so I think it's really wonderful. It's also the only Emily Henry book I own, even though I've read quite a few of them, so that really shows that I loved this book enough to pick it up. Okay, I've gathered my top 5 favorite books of all time, so we're just gonna get into it, and I'm gonna try to not yap for too much, but these books all mean a lot to me. None of them are in any sort of order. There's not a ranking, and like one isn't number 5 and one isn't number 1. They all mean different things to me. They're all unique to different ideas and different parts of my life, so they're all basically tied at first place. That being said, let's get into it. The first book on my list I have is The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion, and I also think this cover is so stunning. I've never seen this cover before I picked up the book. I love the purple and orange. This centers along Joan Didion's experience after her husband and daughter die in a short period of time, and it chronicles her grief, and I think it is such an honest portrayal of grief. The back of the book says a single person is missing for you and the whole world is empty, so that shows kind of how depressing and real this book can be at times. But I really enjoyed it. I had really struggled with reading Joan Didion because she has a lot of short story collections, and that's just generally not my favorite thing to read. I struggle to read short story collections, and I really wanted to be able to say I read Joan Didion. So this was the book that actually worked well for me in getting me into her works, and I think that this is a really phenomenal portrayal of grief. And I think that if you're curious about Joan Didion and also suffer with short stories making your brain go burr, I think that this is a worthwhile pickup. The next book I have on my list is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. And I know that people either kind of love or hate Donna Tartt or love or hate The Secret History, but this book has always meant a lot to me because it is one of the first books that I read as a young adult that started to really connect with me and make me regain the love of reading I had in my youth. The Secret History follows a group of friends who are studying classics at a university in Vermont, and they basically start to commit crimes and engage in really immoral acts, and it becomes a whole whodunit mystery style book, while also really engaging with the setting, engaging with the world they're in. It feels very mystical and dreamlike, almost not a real place, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the book. It feels very Dead Poets Society if you have watched that movie or read that book. And I think that it's just a really wonderful read, and I think that it is definitely worthwhile to give a shot. It is slow at times, but I really love it, and there are so many little quotes and tidbits that I carry with me every day, and I also think that the character work in this is phenomenal, so it has to go in my top 5. The next book I have on my list is also a commonly loved or hated book, which is Normal People by Sally Rooney, and I'm one of the few people who love Sally Rooney. That being said, I don't know why I said few, because she definitely has her cult-like following, but I'm one of those people who love her. I really enjoyed the way that this covered a relationship over such a long period of time. We follow Connell, I don't remember, and Marianne as they grow up from a same small town to going to university to being young adults, and I think that the way they come in and out of each other's lives is so wonderful and so true to the human experience. And I think it also connects with people who had some sort of complicated relationship in their youth that's similar. So I really enjoy Normal People, and I think that it is worth picking up. That being said, I get why people hate Sally Rooney because she does not use quotation marks in her dialogue, and that can make it feel very confusing, almost like it's unclear whether it's a thought or something someone actually said, but I think she does that on purpose, and I think that it is really well done. If you can't get over that, this is also a TV show on Hulu, and that is also a very wonderful show, and I truly recommend. I think that you should try Sally Rooney if you're hesitant. This is a great book, and she has other great novels as well, but this one in particular speaks the most to me. The next book I have on my list is Tress in the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I was really contemplating what Brandon Sanderson book I wanted to include because I do love Brandon Sanderson. I've read all of the Stormlight Archive, and I've read a bunch of his secret projects, including Tress, including Sunlit Man, including Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and I own the first book of Mistborn. I just haven't gotten to it yet. That being said, I knew I wanted to include a Brandon Sanderson book, but I really wasn't sure because all of them kind of sit very highly in my brain. But I think this one sticks out a little bit above the rest. Tress in the Emerald Sea is an adventure story where Tress is trying to get basically the love of her life back, and it is a pirate story. She is on a boat, and the way the oceans work is different than our reality, where oceans are made of spores and they're very dangerous in comparison to, water, which is harmless in small quantities. And I really love this book. I think that fantasy is such a nuanced genre and can tell these really complex, high-stakes stories. And I think that at the core, what normally gets people into fantasy is an adventure story. And I think that this is a wonderful adventure story. It feels like a warm cup of tea. I think the relationships Tress has with every character feels so honest and true, while still being whimsical and silly. And you can tell that Brandon Sanderson just truly enjoyed writing this, and it was such a departure from the books that I had read from him, such as the Stormlight Archive, that feel very gritty and dark and real. This book just feels silly and fun, and it really is a great read. I think this would be a perfect pickup for the fall because it just truly has that cozy, like, curl up with a good book vibe. So yeah, I think you should read it. And I have one more book for you, and I think that this book was going viral like a couple years ago, but I think it is perfect and knows no wrong, which is Ship of Theseus /S by J.J. Abrams and Doug Dorst. And you might notice that this has a different author, but that is part of it. This is essentially a book within a book, and the concept is that there are two people who are checking out this book from the library and continually keep annotating it. The book in the book is called Ship of Theseus, and it's written by this author who uses the pseudonym V.M. Straka, and they're trying to figure out the real identity of the author. This was the final book that the author had ever published in the fiction, so they're annotating it, they're passing it back and forth. I'm gonna try to open it without anything falling out, but you can see that it's annotated, and you're basically reading two separate stories of their annotations and also the actual story that goes along with the book. And I think that this is such a love letter to literature, such a love letter to reading, and you can tell that both J.J. Abrams and Doug Dorst must be huge readers in themselves, and they just love to tell a story. And I think that this made me think about the experience of reading and what makes the experience of reading a book so wonderful. And I think that one of the things that does matter is being able to share that experience with others. So I think that this really plays with that, and I think it's such a wonderful story. And if you're hesitant, it also includes a romance, and I think it is a very sweet, cute romance. And so I think it's really worth picking up, and I think it's really fun that it's, designed as a library book, and it has all these inserts, and it's just a really engaging read, and you can also read it in multiple different ways. They continually pick up the book again and again and again, and you can tell by their annotation color what point in the timeline it is. So you can read all the annotations at once, or you could read, one color annotation, go back and read a different color again and again and again. So I really think this is worth picking up. It is long, it is hefty, and it is kind of a big amount of work to read, but I think it is a beautiful book and I really recommend. Those are all my books that I had to talk about in this video. I really appreciate the support on my last video, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed this one. I really look forward to making more book content. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye!